Good morning, everybody. It is Sunday morning and I'm hard at work at my local dive bar, as you can see from the rest of the bar and the back wall. It's a beautiful Sunday, and so it's quiet. One thing I gotta compete against is the jukebox. So fortunately, I'm getting better at talking to you guys throughout the video, that I don't have to worry too much of copyright striking because I'm talking over the music, so it doesn't really, I guess, say pick it up enough to say you're violating the copyright strike. So now if I stop talking and you can hear too much of the song, yeah, it gets copyright strike. So that makes it harder for me to post it and get people to watch it. So, but it does happen sometimes. There's been a couple days where I've had to reshoot the video because I'm getting better at, like, okay, like when Don Henley's playing, don't do the video. When George Thorogood is playing, don't shoot your video. So, because those guys, I know they're really big on restricting the use of their songs. So, okay, like yesterday I talked to you guys about Ethan Van Sciver's Rekt Planet finally arriving. I left the bar early when I got the notification that the package had been delivered. I got home and sure enough, it was sitting right there in front of my door. And I hadn't had a chance to read it by the time we did the show, The Chat, last night on Dangerous Vanessa's channel. I do enjoy the show. I encourage anybody who's a comic book fan, specifically of crowdfunding books, to tune in. The one thing you're guaranteed if you go and watch The Chat: multiple assassination attempts on my life with laughter. Yes, that is right. I am being openly targeted for death due to laughter. So take your best shot, guys. I encourage you. Take your best shot. So after the show, I did sit down and I did read. I read Rekt Planet. I read Death Sting, Salamander Death Sting, and I read Heart Sick Heart. My very first reaction after reading Rekt Planet is that it is two comic books. It is two comic books back to back. Now, it's because it's a chromium book and it actually has 4 staples in it to hold the damn thing together, because it uses such high quality paper. It automatically wants to open up to the very middle. And we all know that middle panel because we did videos of him working on it. It's the video of the Vespids uncovering the body of the Vespid that had been killed by Cyberfrog. And just how he does the pacing up to that double page spread, including what Cyberfrog says in the very last panel. Boom, it's an automatic cliffhanger that if he reprints this as 2 separate issues, he can. All he has to do is come up with a new opening splash page that leads into the following page after that, and it's a complete issue. And it doesn't have to be a bit. I mean, if I don't want to give anything away, but all he has to do is that splash page has to be literally. Okay, so here's your double page splash page of the Vespid being dug up, and Cyberfrog's in this corner. He's going, "This isn't good." If you turn that page, okay, there's something going on there. Okay, if he were to republish that, and this is your new first page, if he were to redo that page, and what that image is literally what happens literally just before this panel, it'll work out perfectly as 2 separate issues. So, I mean, it's something for him to consider, because remember, the one thing ETH is always about is keeping the books in print and keeping it available for people to read. I see that personally as having that one image. It makes a full, and you'll be getting 2 full complete images, or 2 complete stories. So I thought, yeah, we had to wait a really long time, but when you look at it where it's like, he literally gave us 2 complete issues. And on top of that, he did all the artwork for Salamander Death Sting. So he was, I would say it was like what? I did not, I think, when I discovered CG, Rekt Planet was already in demand. And let's just say he launched that in, let's say what, 2020? So if he launched that in 2020 and he fulfilled in 2023, that's 3 years. And he did 1 issue, essentially he did 1 issue a year over that course of time, with the combination of all of Death Sting and 2 issues of Cyberfrog. So I thought, I mean, I think in some ways it's kind of one of those where it's like, he did 2, if you look at where he did it as 1 issue, it could be seen as he did too much. But when I look at the pacing, if he just put it out there with like the first quarter and the last half, it would have been a very choppy method of storytelling. All the stuff he included in the first half of the book, I will agree and support that it was necessary for the story. And like I said, if he'd had, again, I know he doesn't use an editor, and in some ways he's become big enough, but more important, I think he needs to become mature enough to look at it and go, yeah, I do need an editor, someone that can keep me on track with making certain that the story moves smoothly. And if I want to have that large of a story, I gotta cut stuff down or break it into 2 books without having too much fluff, which he didn't really have any fluff in it. Everything he provided, it's debatable whether he needed everything in it. I mean, visually, storytelling wise, in some ways I did. Again, I know there's a lot of people who are like, he took too long, da 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 da. Guys, there's like, okay, George Perez, no longer with us. Hyper detail. Phil Jimenez, he's left out the pasture. He's not doing anything. Last thing he did was what, 2 years ago for DC, and I picked it up off the shelf. It was one of those oversized black issues, and it was so heavy with computer generated images that I was like, he's copping out, in my opinion. I'm like, no, this is not the Phil Jimenez that's hyper detailed. This is clutter that he's doing with all the AI crap and computer generated backgrounds and such. I'm going to get hell. I'm going to get hell for this, okay? When it comes to hyper detailed drawing, okay, Ethan has become the heir apparent to George Perez. And I'm going to get a lot of shit for that. But you need to be able to if you're going to disagree with me, you need to back it up with examples of who is the heir apparent to George Perez, if it's not Ethan. Okay? Now, I can get a lot. Here's the biggest thing when you argue against me about this is you have to separate the man from the artwork. Okay? Separate the man from the artwork. I can see where a lot of people are going to come down on him and me because of my statements, because of they're looking at Ethan the man. Don't look at Ethan the man. Look at Ethan the artist. Okay? Perfect example is I'm not a fan of Matt Barr. He did a mini print for Fiendish Chapter 2. And it was in, Reenie had as a stretch goal in her campaign. Okay? I personally do not care for Matt Barr. But I thought the mini print that was done for Reenie was exceptional. Okay? I am separating Matt Barr from his artwork. And that's what you gotta do. If you want to come at me, please come at me with a valid, constructive argument. I will gladly have a debate with you if it's about the artwork and not the man. Okay? So, but no, I did enjoy it. And one of the things I did really like about it also is he had ads in the back of his book. He had an ad for his action figures, and he had an ad for his Salamandroid mug, including QR codes. So I thought, it was like, wow, that's really good. It gave that sense of the comic books that we saw in the 90s, where you'd read the book, and in the back of the book, like the image books, and how like when they first started getting into action figures and the posable, you know, how like all the guys had like little not really posable, like 5 articulation, but just like plastic molds of characters, and they're kind of those cheap plastics, so it was bendy. It was done intentionally that way. They had that in almost all the image books. So it's like one of those where it's like he is, in some ways, by putting the ads for the Salamandroid mug, by having the action figures in his book, it was indeed still a homage to the 90s, along with having the chromium cover that Valiant did so much of. So he's definitely, in many ways, Cyberfrog is a love letter to the 90s. Death Sting, I'm gonna breeze over Death Sting because I didn't care for it. I personally didn't care for it. I thought the panel layouts were wonky, and it was just, I had trouble reading it. There was no smooth transition from image to image. He was really doing a lot of that, like no borders, and one image molds into another image, so it's almost like a montage. And with the wacky poses he was doing, because it's Salamandroid, it was, the first part of the book was really like, what's going on, what's happening. The second book did get more into providing insight and storytelling, but overall I was not like oh wow, this is really good. And I don't know, it provided some information that might be needed down the road, but it's information that could have been easily provided on one page or a panel in the next book if he chooses to, which he most likely will. So I did, like I said, I didn't really think it was necessary. Now, and like I said, another thing also about the dialogue to me, like the artwork, was slightly choppy. So, and this is my personal opinion about it. I'm sure there are going to be other people who are going to disagree with me, but my personal experience from reading Death Sting was, it wasn't really needed. I mean, it's one of those where it's like, okay, you have 1998 here, you have 1998 here, you got 2018 here. Salamandroid takes place really, literally right in 1998, and then fast forward. Okay, I wanted more of telling the story, what was happening between 1998 and 2018. Hearts of Horror did that. Hearts of Horror helped bridge that. It had 2 stories It was even done on like cheaper paper, and the cheaper paper didn't bother me at all. I mean, honestly, if that had been a stretch goal and it came out on that paper, I really would not have been bothered. But remember, it was a free book that you got with every copy. And it, like I said, the cheaper paper didn't bother me at all. And the story, I thought the story was very good. It really got into what Heather's experience was like during that time between the two. How she lived, how she survived, how she found love, and which resulted in Lily. And it wasn't one of those where it's like, you're here, I'm here, let's just fucking have a kid. No, it was, she thought that this is what she wanted, and she went with it. And it's also one of those where it's like, after a certain period of time, even though she loves Cyberfrog, Cyberfrog and it's her best friend, it shows how she was growing from that. She was growing, and she was like, he's not around, he's not coming back. I don't think he must be dead. And she had to move on. And that's what she did. She moved on during that period of time. So I thought it was very good. Artwork was very good. I'm not even going to make an attempt. I know Cannon White did the second story, which was also very good, and helped really tell the story of, in some ways, of the community. But it took place in 2018. I would have preferred if the second story had taken place between the two, like the first story. The first story, which, if I want to remember correctly, I think it was E.G. Morris. I might be wrong in pronouncing the name. He did the first story where Heather moves on and she meets her Lily's father, Mr. Owens. And I thought that one was done very well. It was done efficiently. It was telling you just what you need to move on. There wasn't a lot of fluff in the story, but it was still a very good story to give you an idea of what happened. And moving forward, I mean, I would love. Here's my thing with this whole apocalyptic story that he's doing, is that he's focusing on this community in the Pine Barrens with the Pineys. But I want to know what's also going on in the world. I want to know what's going on up in Buffalo, New York. I want to know what's going on in New York City in the 5 boroughs. If there's any survivors there. I want to know, like, out in Mechanicsburg, Pennsylvania, how are people surviving there? There's got to be little pockets and hamlets of survivors across the world. I would love to know like that, even if he just did like a supplemental of 4-page stories. You know, those slices of life. Okay. The main thing I think about Stephen King when he did the book The Stand. Okay. And after he's done telling the story of how Captain Trips took out 99% of the population, there was a small portion of the population essentially self-deleted themselves. Okay, it's about 3 to 4 pages, that maybe more, but still, you know, relatively a very short portion of the book that Stephen King talks about the Darwin factor, where people, like one person who was immune fell down a well and died. One person who, she survived because she's immune. She hated her husband and child, and she put them in a meat locker, and then she locked herself in by accident. Okay, that's what I mean when I say slices of life. Like, just give me like 4 pages, tell me how people are surviving in the Midwest. Just give me 4 pages of how are people surviving down in Mexico. How are people surviving the Amazon jungle? Because it can't be just the remaining population of the world is in the Pine Barrens of South Jersey. So I would like to see that. It doesn't need to be a complete, like I said. And the thing about slice of life stories is you don't need to have You don't need to have a start. You don't need to have an ending. All you're doing is creating that sense of what's going on in that part of the country and how are they surviving. You can use it with a bookends to tell a complete story, but you have the beginning of the story, you have your slices of life going throughout the book, and then you have your ending of your story. So you still get a full story, but you get that idea of like, how are people surviving? A perfect example, like the reason why I cited Mechanicsburg, Pennsylvania is because that's where I live. And we live about like a half hour, 20 minutes to a half hour away from Hershey. Okay. On your way to Hershey, there is the Indian Echo Caverns. Okay. Just north of us is Reading. It's about an hour away. Reading is known because remember, Pennsylvania when it was its main economy for a number of years was the coal mining. Okay. Well, think about it. If you got people in the northeast and northwest of Pennsylvania, and the Vespid are attacking, you're going to run and hide. Where can you go that possibly they won't find you? Down in the coal mines. Plus, the smoke keeps them away. Hey, you're in a coal mine. You've got an abundance of coal to burn to keep them away. So I mean, just like stuff like that, to like this, how are people surviving? You go into the old La Brea Caverns. You go into Indian Echo Caverns with the beautiful stalactites and stalagmites, and you figure out ways, and you create a life down there. And I think I would like to see that, just that slice of life stuff. It's one of those things where you couldn't effectively tell it with a TV show. They sometimes tried it. It really didn't succeed. But again, this is a show where the comic book medium varies from TV. Is in comics you can do that slice of life stuff without it interfering with the story, but it gives the audience a broader understanding of the world in which your characters are living in. So I would really like to see a slice of life in the Salamander, in the Cyber Frog universe. So, like I said, this is my first initial gut reaction review. This is within 24 hours of receipt. It's not actually within. I haven't technically this time. Yesterday I hadn't received it yet. So within the first 24 hours, that's my reaction and my review. So. That's about it for today. I'm moving on to my time-lapse video. I was having fun working on the whiskey bottle. I'll be working on the whiskey bottle again. I anticipate finishing the whiskey bottle today, and I'm probably going to then, from there, I'm probably going to go into, if I have enough time, I will start working on the Fairy Boneyard. So, but yeah, this ink was... This nib needs cleaned, and this inkwell is shot. I think what I might have to do is I might have to start working on the this time-lapse one with the horror creatures. I think I'm gonna have to work on that regularly until the ink gets down to the bottom, and then I can start, because all this ink here that I'm laying down is from the old inkwell. That's the reason why it's so faded, because it's gunky and it just doesn't feed through. So we might have to switch gears before I can continue videos finishing up this image. So, but hey, I muscle through it. Remember, life gives you obstacles. Life is stressful, but that's why you take it all just one dot at a time.